So good evening, ladies. Once again, sorry about the delay, but we're happy to have everyone this evening. As you know, this evening we'll be talking to Inspector Anika, Becker, and Corporal Kelley, McIntyre. And this we'll be talking about Canadian policing, women in policing, and intimate partner violence, commonly known as IPV. So this evening, we just want to welcome two amazing ladies from the Canada Cases Police Force to come talk to us about this very important topic. So without much ado, I just want to welcome both of you. And you have the floor.
Thank you so much for having us. I love this idea that we're able, as women in policing, support women in your leadership cohort. And I hope that we can offer you something valuable through this presentation. And before Corporal Kelley McIntyre starts talking about the IPV portion, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Canadian policing in general. So about me, I am the inspector in charge of operations at the Kennebecasis Regional Police Force. I've been a police officer for 25 years. I spent the first half of my career in Nova Scotia and then moved here in 2008. So I love this community. I love police work. And I got into it because I want to make a difference in the community. And I feel a strong sense of social responsibility and to be a servant to the community. So those are the reasons why I wanted to get into policing. And just, I'm not sure where everybody lives and works, but I just wanted to point out that we serve specifically Quispamsis and Rossay. That's the Kennebecasis Regional Police Force jurisdiction. So if you live in St. John, that police force would be the police force of jurisdiction if you wanted to make a complaint or if you had a problem. But either way, we can talk about policing in general from our standpoint. And if you're in our community, we'll be happy to help you in any way. So for those of you who are new to Canada, you might be wondering about the police and what their responsibilities and roles are here. I think first and foremost, it's really important to know that the responsibility of the police in Canada is to treat everybody with respect, regardless of their origin or length of time in Canada. So we want you to feel comfortable approaching our police officers and know that they will do everything they can help you with whatever issues you may be facing. And while I'm speaking, if anybody has a question, by all means, raise your hand and cut in anytime. So the police in Canada are responsible for protecting life and property, maintaining peace and order, preventing and investigating crime, and enforcing municipal, provincial, and federal laws. So when you come to the Kennebecasis Valley and you see our police officers, you'll see that they wear a dark blue uniforms with a red stripe. They usually have police written across their backs. If you ever encounter one, it is every bit your right to ask them their name and to see a badge or ask them to identify themselves so that you're feeling comfortable with whom you're dealing with. Our police cars are black and white and it has Kennebecasis police on the side. The lights on the top are red and blue. You've probably seen that on television, but just good points to know if you're wondering, you know, is this the real police, and you know, who am I dealing with, and to give you a bit of a comfort level. They all carry badges and identification, which you can ask to see at any time. And if you're unsure if a person you're dealing with is actually a police officer, by all means, make sure you call 911 and we'll have somebody respond. So emergency situations, I'm sure everybody's heard of 911. It might be different in different countries, but here specifically for emergencies is 911. So if you're witnessing a crime and if something serious is happening, someone is being assaulted, or you see a break and enter in progress, or you're afraid, feel free to dial 911. We have operators that can connect you with interpreters if you're feeling uncomfortable with the English language or if you need help in that regard. And for non-emergency matters, we also have a different number that you can call for day-to-day things, like let's say you need a criminal record check, or you would like a community presentation, or you just want to make a complaint about a minor crime. You can call 847-6300 and they'll direct you to the appropriate people to help you. Any questions so far? Okay, I don't want to ramble on and have you forget what you might want to ask along the way. So I just want to point out, it's very important for everybody to know that a call to the police is never going to affect your immigration status. Some people are nervous about that and feel like if they call the police to make a complaint about something, that could affect them negatively in some way. And that is absolutely not true. Unless you're committing a crime, it's not going to affect you in any way. And that is a question we commonly get, and that's why I'm bringing it up. So your rights in Canada. So we're governed by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it's part of the Constitution that guarantees certain rights to everybody. So if you're stopped by the police, you have the right to ask why you're being stopped. You have the right not to answer any questions. And but you will be required to identify yourself peacefully, and you have the right to ask for a lawyer. And in Canada, there's always the presumption of innocence. If there's any allegation of anything, whether it's a traffic stop or whether there's an allegation for something else. Yeah, excuse me. So no matter what, there's always the presumption of innocence, in our Canadian justice system, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. A common reason that you may encounter the police, day-to-day people who encounter the police, are sometimes traffic stops. So common things that people are stopped for are things like speeding or running through a stop sign or a red light and those types of things. And the thing to know when the police stop you is, one, not to be afraid, because their purpose is only to keep the traffic laws safe and the roads safe for everybody to use, but to listen to their instructions and to provide them things like your driver's license, your vehicle registration, which is an ownership certificate, and proof of insurance. And in New Brunswick, your vehicle has to be safety inspected. So those are the types of things that they'll be looking for. Distracted driving is a very common offense. So that's when people are using their cell phones while they're driving. So those are the types of things that you could potentially be stopped for. And if you are issued a fine, you can either decide to pay it, or you can go to court and you can fight that ticket if you believe that you didn't commit the offense that the officer is alleging. So that's how our system works. Then just on to some general personal safety issues. Important thing to remember, things like if you're out shopping and you have some parcels and packages, not to keep them in your vehicle in plain sight. People or criminals are often opportunists. So if they walk by and see things openly in your vehicle, like a set of keys or a package that looks enticing, or cash or anything like that, they'll try the handles, try to get in. Sometimes they'll break windows. So keeping those things out of sight. When you're walking alone, making sure you're always carrying a cell phone, or walking in populated areas or where there's a lot of lighting, so that you're never really alone. We have a very, very safe community, but anything can happen anywhere. So it's always good to take those extra precautions. A big thing that we deal with lately are frauds and scams. So through text messages and online and those types of things. Common ones are, for example, people will get a call from somebody claiming to be a lawyer and saying that they have their grandchild in jail because they hit somebody with a car and they have to send money, or else they're going to come after you. That would never happen. The police or lawyers wouldn't call you and ever ask you for money. And if you ever got a call like that, you can call the police and ask if you have any questions, or if you feel like if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So don't be afraid to ask. Police officers will answer your call 24 hours a day and give you the appropriate advice. Text messages saying that your Amazon account has been compromised, that's another way. I'm sure Corporal McIntyre can give you a ton of other examples because she works the front lines, but those are types of things to consider. And then other things are things like that we take very seriously are elder abuse and senior safety, making sure our seniors are safe. That includes, neglect of care, physical abuse, financial exploitation, things like that, and making sure that the seniors in our community are safe. So if you have concerns of anything like that, feel free to reach out for us for those type of things. Child abuse, any form, whether it's online or in person, we have all kinds of connections in the community to help people get resources for help. So it's another example of a reason where you may want to call the police and get some advice or help. We have many resources for different things, whether it's domestic violence or food banks or kids help phones and 211 that connects you with various resources. So I'm happy to share some of those with you. I know Kelley has some pamphlets that we could share with you that you could use anytime, or if you were concerned about something. So that's just a quick overview, because I don't want to talk too long. I'd love to be a little more interactive and get some questions, but does anybody have any specific questions about the police that you kind of would like to have answered or you're curious about?
Cohorts, but for the benefit of those who do not know you or meeting you for the first time,
Yes.
I just want, and I know this is one question that most of them have on their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Inspector Anika, and how did you find yourself in the police force?
Well, I grew up in rural New Brunswick, and about 2 hours away from here. And I became interested in policing in my late teens, when I was close to graduating from school and wondering what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Like I said before, I've always had this strong sense of social responsibility and wanting to serve the community, and really felt that I could make a difference if I went into policing. So many years ago, I went to the local RCMP detachment that were policing my community, and I asked to go on ride-alongs. And eventually that led to me applying to the police academy. And I started in policing in Nova Scotia at the young age of 22 years old, which is funny. So much time has passed. Now I see the young officers. I'm like, you look like a little kid. But I guess we all have to start somewhere. So yeah, I spent most of my career on patrol, so answering calls on shift work, night shifts, day shifts, working 24-hour policing. It was always felt like it was my calling. I was always very proud to wear the uniform. I was always felt very fulfilled by having helped people. You know, if I was the first person through the door at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone dialed 911, and you see the look of relief on their face, you just know this is an important moment, and you're there for people when they need you. So outside of that, I have 2 sons. One just graduated university. One is married with 2 children. And I have 2 grandsons. I have a yeah, it's a
You don't
lot of
look
fun.
it. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I am an animal lover. I have a little hobby farm just outside of Quispamsis. I have horses and dogs and chickens and things like that. And Kelley McIntyre is my longtime friend. We met many years ago in Nova Scotia when we both were early in our policing careers, and we're excited to still be together all these years later. And I do want to boast about her a little bit. Kelley McIntyre is such a huge advocate for women, huge advocate for gender equality, all and violence against women. She does all kinds of work in the community, has a ton of connections, fundraising, even so to the point that she receives calls on her own time from people in the community that need help, and she never ever fails them, and she never ever fails to amaze me. So you're about to have a presentation from quite a remarkable person.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And so I asked the question about your personal life because, again, for most of the newcomers, when we talk about police in Canada, we want to be sure, like, it's hard to believe sometimes they're just humans, and women like us, especially, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but talking about your personal life and just like every person, like animal lover, family, kids, it kind of helps us understand that we're all humans and we're all women, and we have some similarities, you know, to a great degree. So thank you so much for sharing your story and background with us. And then you also talked about different aspects of policing. You talked about rights, personal and property safety, as well as fraud protection. So that's very good ones. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Corporal Kelley, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, you can call me Kelley. So that
okay.
Just call me Kelley. I'm just regular.
All right. Thanks, Kelley.
So thank you for having me. And Anika really talked me up there, so I better impress here in the next couple minutes. But a little bit about me is I am almost 43 years old. I'm a mom. I have 2 girls. I have one that's 14 in high school and another one that's 9 in elementary school. So between coaching basketball and competitive dance, with my
Wow.
daughter. I'm a pretty busy mummy. My husband's also a police officer. We both work shift work. So how are shifts? You can see I'm all dolled up here tonight, but I'm working tonight. I'm going to work till about 5:30 in the morning. And then my husband's actually going to come in and switch off with me, and he's going to work the day shift. So it's a
Wow.
pretty hectic life. How I started off in policing, very much like Anika. I wanted to be a police officer. I think probably I was a little bit younger, but I really smartened up in high school. I probably didn't have the greatest marks at first, but once I realized what I wanted to do, everything just kind of fell into place. Now, what I started doing early on was I actually went to the St. John Police Force. When I was in high school, they had what was called a co-op program, and you could actually go out with the police and work with them, volunteer with them, do all sorts of things, and it was supposed to help you decide if that's something that you wanted to do. So I very much fell in love with policing right off the bat. And once I got out of high school, I started off volunteering with the St. John Police Force on their steering committee to start up community policing in St. John. So when community policing came into St. John, I'm going to say probably 1999, I was a big part of sitting on the committee for that. So I'm very proud to say that I was there. And then other than that, I've got a small dog. I love animals too, like Anika. And most of the other time I spend is volunteering in the community. But my passion really is to work with women. I'm on Hestia House, which is our women's shelter. I used to be the vice chair. I left that, but they asked me to come back and be on the advisory for that, so I agreed. And then I'm also working on a huge project right now with our youth center that we're reopening out here. So I'm excited to see that project finished in April. And then I'm also the vice president of the Atlantic Women in Law Enforcement. So all the women in law enforcement across Atlantic Canada, we have a great big group of us. So it could be anybody that works in fisheries, to a sheriff, to a probation officer. Everybody's in a group. So there's probably over 1,000 of us. So I just took that position on in November. So I'm a girl power kind of lady. So maybe what we can do, you can kind of see up on the screen here, it says teen dating violence. Now, I know we're not all teens, but February is actually Teen Dating Violence Month. And a lot of the things that teenagers go through with domestic violence, women go through the same thing as well. So I thought I'll pop this presentation up tonight and we'll talk a little bit about that and what some of the crimes look like in Canada. So with our department, how I work is I work as a patrol officer, part-time supervisor. So I'm supervising tonight, but I also review any files that come in to do with families. So whether it's a husband and wife that are in some sort of disagreement or something criminals happen, whether it's, parents and a child where something happens, or whether it's the same-sex relationship and something happens. So I review all those files. I get involved in to see if there's anything I can do, if there's some resources that I can help with. And then at times when we need to, I ensure that charges are laid in a timely manner if someone has to go to court. But my real goal is just to make sure that the victim is well supported and is kept safe. And then I try to work with the family as a whole to see how I can help them. So if you don't mind, Christine, if you can go to the next slide there really quick. I'll try not to talk too much here. Oh, perfect. So what we refer to domestic violence or family violence, we call here in the province of New Brunswick intimate partner violence. So again, that means it could mean if you're just started dating somebody, it could mean if you were in a relationship for 20 years, as long as you were in an intimate relationship with someone at one point. Now, a lot of people assume that domestic violence only means if you actually physically touch somebody or hurt somebody, but it falls under a lot of other stuff. So any act of violence, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, we see a lot of financial abuse. I know Anika mentioned some of the senior abuse that we see, but sexual abuse also falls underneath the same umbrella. Now, some of these things might be a little harder to understand, but these are just some of the types of offenses I have listed here. But a lot of times I get questions, and I would probably say with women, probably about 75% of the files that I investigate, there's some type of sexual assault that has taken place in an intimate relationship, whether the partner feels that they're forced to complete a sexual act. A lot of times people used to have the idea that just because you were married with someone or in a relationship with someone that you owed them, that you had to be intimate with them and that you couldn't say no. But that's very different, is very different here. And it's sometimes we do lay charges on spouses for sexual abuse. We have a lot of issues sometimes too in cases with the intimate partner violence of threats. So threats are a criminal offense here. We take that stuff very seriously. So whether it's a threat that someone says they're going to hurt you, or maybe do something to your property, or maybe hurt a parent or a child, or a lot of times we see stuff where intimate partners will threaten to maybe hurt an animal. And people sometimes don't realize that these fall under criminal offenses, and they don't feel like it may be something that should be, the police should be called or the police should be involved in. But these are all types of things that we would probably deal with on a regular basis. Another one we see quite a bit is property damage when it comes to intimate partner violence. And what I mean by that is some of the cases I would investigate, I would maybe see that maybe a partner doesn't necessarily hit or physically harm somebody, but maybe they would punch a wall beside them or damage something in the home or damage something that's important to you. Maybe you have something maybe your mom gave you or something very sentimental, and they would damage that. That all falls under a criminal offense, and those are all sorts of things that I investigate. And some of the other stuff we're seeing, and specifically with teens, is what we call extortion or uploading some of these intimate photos. So maybe you're in a relationship with somebody and they've taken photos of you with or without your consent, and they threaten you and say, if you don't do this, I'm going to post these types of photos. So these are all types of investigations that we deal with, and they're all sorts of things that the police can work with and help women with if they find themselves in those positions. So you can kind of see on the bottom one, ladies, there's a site, and I'll point it out at the end, but this is actually one of my favorite sites to look up. I use it all the time. It is loveisrespect.org. It has tons of information. So whether you have a teenager or someone that's a preteen, or there's, even yourself, there's information on risk assessments. There's information on if you want to ask yourself if you're a good partner. There's information on just about pretty much everything. There's a talk line that you can call at any point in time and speak with somebody on. So there's tons of information on that site. I use this a lot when I do presentations in high schools, but I also refer a lot of women to go to this site to look up information. Comes up. So a little bit about the province of New Brunswick. So some of the things that we saw specifically during COVID was, well, COVID was just interesting in general for everybody, but some of the things that we saw as police is things were really quiet for a while, and it was strange, and quiet isn't necessarily a good thing in our business. So we saw a lot of people that were in homes together that normally weren't, or there was financial stress, or the kids were home and everyone was trying to homeschool. Anyway, during that time in the province of New Brunswick, domestic violence rose by 39%, which is very, very high. So all of a sudden we heard nothing, and then all of a sudden we heard all sorts of things, and we were trying to deal with it. But New Brunswick right now has actually the highest reported rate of intimate partner violence in Atlantic Canada. So it's very normal for the police to deal with, even in our department out here, calls like this every day where we're working with families. That's what we're here for. We also have the highest rate of what's called criminal harassment. So some people may think that's like stalking, but a lot of it we see is maybe harassment like on social media. Maybe your partner is harassing you, sending you messages or sending your family messages, or we would see someone doing like repeated text messages to somebody. Maybe there might be some things of threatening nature, but New Brunswick has the highest rate in Canada of that. This I think is really important because I'm just looking at the women that we have online and our numbers right here, but this is pretty much nationally what this number is, but 1 in 4 women have been exposed to intimate partner violence. So that's very true for this province. That's very true for what we would see here. But I think the reason I'm really pointing that out is that this happens to a lot of women. A lot of women feel sometimes embarrassed or ashamed to come to the police, but this is something that we deal with on a regular basis, and we're very comfortable dealing with, and that we know if someone comes to the police station to say that something's happened to them, or that they need help or they need guidance or they need support, we're very used to that and we can provide all that. And then just some other stats here, but at one point well, I think one of the last reports, we might have gone down a little bit, which is good, but 2008, we held the highest rate in Canada for violence against women. Which is, you know, again, it's a very, New Brunswick's a beautiful place to live. But we see a lot of this in rural communities as well. And then, yeah, there's just some other information there just about murder suicides that we have seen a lot over the years with intimate partner violence. But there's a website I'm just going to point you to, just that's at the bottom of the screen there. That's also a really great website to go to. It's a government in New Brunswick website, and it has a lot of really good information on it for women as well on relationships. So if someone came to the station to work with me, this would be one of the sites that I would also recommend them to, and that we would maybe work together to sit down and go through it.
Is there any data to support the reasons or the causes for the high incidents of IPVs in Canada and criminal harassment? That's like, why New Brunswick? Why Atlantic Canada? Why do we have such scary numbers? Is there a reason? Is there something peculiar about
Well,
our province?
I think there's a couple things. So one, when we talk about like the homicides, like if you look at New Brunswick on a map, we're very rural. We have a lot of rural areas. So there's a lot more people in those rural areas that have access to firearms or have kept firearms. That's where some of those stats came from. With regards to the criminal harassment, I'm not 100% sure, but what I think is really great about New Brunswick and really great about our community, of course, I'm going to brag up KV, is that we've been, I guess I would say, a leader across Canada with providing resources and getting out there and being in the media. So I feel that women have been a lot more comfortable coming to the police and making these types of reports because we're out there. We're saying, come talk to us. We have information. We have lots of great support programs. We can help you. I would be fairly confident myself to be able to say to somebody that I don't think that you could ever present me with any barrier that could prevent me from helping you, because I feel that I can help it. I can help even some of the worst situations because I've seen them. So I think that New Brunswick has done a really good job with providing information and supporting women. And that might be some of the reason why our numbers look a little bit higher, because we're out there and people are feeling really comfortable about coming to us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me go to the next slide.
All right, so this is a little bit about teens. Again, where I said February's Teen Dating Violence Month. So I'm out in the schools a little bit this month having these discussions. But what we're seeing now, the rates with teens are a little bit higher. And they say that the highest risk people are between the ages of 16 and 24 right now for intimate partner violence. But they'll say right now that 1 in 3 teens will experience dating violence. And people that are victims as teenagers for domestic violence are also usually re-victimized as an adult. So that's why it's really important to us when, even if it's you had a teenager that came in, whether it's your son or your daughter, because males can be victims too. We would like to deal with them at an early age, like work with them, because then it prevents them being victims down the road. So we can get people into counseling, we can get them into support, we can get them into group sessions, we can do all those sorts of things. Just being police officers, we have all the access to the resources that can help. So we like when people come to the station early on, if they feel maybe their child's at risk or they feel that maybe their child's in an unhealthy relationship. We like when they come talk to us because we can 100% help out, but we can also support that parent that's going through that as well. That sort of thing. So here's some of the signs. Now I use these for teens, but really these are for anybody. If you notice it, if you're a person that's thinking, wow, jeepers, my friend's not in a great spot. My coworker's not in a great spot. I kind of feel that there's something happening, but I'm not sure. These are kind of the signs that we notice right off, but a lot of it's like people withdrawing from activities that maybe they used to go to, or, they're not spending time with their family and friends like they used to, like the partner's controlling that. Someone that's receiving multiple text messages from their partner a day, they say on average that an abusive partner will send the victim up to like 300 text messages a day. And that person's continuously trying to answer those and keep them happy and very much pleased. Jealousy, someone that's jealous. Some people think that, oh, it's nice that my spouse or my boyfriend is jealous, but jealousy, jealousy is a bit normal. We see that everyone's a little jealous once in a while, but someone that's very jealous, that would be a concern for us, that they need to constantly spend time with that person. Things like they demand to know where that person is all the time. I think one of the scary things that I see is Snapchat. I do not like Snapchat as a police officer. And yes, it just scares me. So what I really dislike about Snapchat is there's a locator on it. So it's very easy to track where your partner is, where the victim's at. So the person can be like, make sure that you turn on your Snap so I know where you're at. And it's very easy to track them. So those things concern us as a police officer, but somebody that also needs to know like all your passwords, all your phone information. They want to read your text messages. Those are red flags for me right off the bat when somebody comes in. And then there's another app out there, and I can't think what it is right now, but there's another app specific to track your spouse with. Or what we see is, are you familiar? Maybe ladies aren't, or some of you are, but tiles. Now, I have a tile on my set of car keys because Anna could be able to tell you I'm a little scattered sometimes and I lose about everything. But I have that so I can find my car keys. But I've investigated complaints where the abuser has a tile stuck in the victim's vehicle so they can track where they're at all times. So
that's like Kelley, that's like an air tag, right? The tile,
yes,
like an air tag?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So like Apple AirTags, like the stuff I put on my luggage when I have to go through the Pearson airport. So I know where my stuff is. But yeah, we see that a lot too. And we have more complaints, I noticed recently, because it's kind of a big thing. It's a big seller right now on Amazon. So it's out there more. So again, if you hear somebody like, I have kind of listed here, like someone that's insulting the person or criticizing them for everything they do or name calling. That's probably pretty regular what we would hear when someone comes in the station, that their partner has been calling them certain things. They insult them. Maybe they tell them they're overweight. Maybe they tell them they're ugly. They would tell them that nobody probably wants to be with them, that sort of thing. Those are all things that the police can help with. And then, of course, we talk about unexplained bruising or injuries. So a lot of times abusers, we see like on some of the posters, which is a bit deceiving when we talk about intimate partner violence. Sometimes they'll show that someone has a black eye, but most of the time abusers don't want to give the victim a black eye because then when they go out in public or they miss work, it's going to draw some attention to them. So a lot of times when I work with somebody and they have bruising on them from an incident, it's bruising that's normally hidden. So finger marks, which we would see, it's like little tiny bruises, or bruises on their back we would see often, or on their legs. Those are the types of injuries we would see, but we've kind of put it out in society that that you will only see black eyes, which is not the case at all.
Yeah, just before you go to the next slide, you mentioned that the police can help in situations where there's insulting, name calling, body shaming, and things like that. How does the police help with that?
Well, the good part is, and I'll have a list here at the end of this, but the good part is that, again, there's so many resources. There's resources in St. John, there's resources in KV, there's resources around the entire province. But a lot of places in the province of New Brunswick have what are called outreach workers. They're totally free to go see. It doesn't cost anything. St. John has one. It's called St. John Domestic Violence Outreach. The girl that works there, her name is Kelley. We don't give Kelley's last name out. Kelley will never give her last name out that works in there either, for safety reasons. But you can go meet with someone like her and she can help you with counseling, and she can help you with, helping you get a safety plan. A lot of cases, women don't enter a relationship when someone's name calling them. We usually get in a relationship because we think the person's nice, we're attracted to them, we think things are going good. But what we typically see is progression. So maybe it starts out with name calling, maybe it starts out with those insults. And then things can get progressively worse. So what an outreach worker can do and what the police can help you do is get you hooked up with that person. And that person can start talking to you about maybe some risk factors, maybe some red flags in your relationship that you might want to consider. And if you're stuck in a situation, a lot of women I find will stay in a situation because of financial reasons. They've got kids. The rent is ridiculous everywhere right now, which becomes a huge barrier. But an outreach worker has access, and so do the police, to other service providers that can help with that. So places like Hestia House, which I'll talk about in a minute, or Second Stage Housing. There's all sorts of different things that the province is bringing in right now for women trying to leave domestic violence, where we can, make it so that your rent is lower. We can help you get back into the workforce. All those sorts of things. If someone were to come to me and say, my boyfriend's calling me names, I'm feeling kind of uneasy, I'm kind of stuck because I can't leave the relationship, I'd say, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. But I'm also going to refer you to somebody else, so someone can spend some one-on-one time with you, because I want to make sure that we know all the risks. Because sometimes, I'll be honest, people are nervous to come to the police, and I understand that. I'm hoping after this no one's nervous of me, but I get that people are nervous. It's intimidating, and sometimes it's the hardest step is for somebody to walk into this building, and you're really telling somebody all the skeletons in your closet, and sometimes you're kind of bearing your soul when you're coming in here. But sometimes it's nice to have somebody else that maybe isn't a police officer that can speak to you and you feel maybe more comfortable with. And I certainly never take offense to that. Our goal is we want to keep people safe. So this is basically how you can help somebody that's in that situation, because really, if you look at the stats, we've all known somebody that has been in an abusive relationship. And I can definitely say that myself. Friends, family, I've seen it. But it's about having an open conversation with that person about what's healthy in a relationship. Maybe talking about them about setting boundaries, what they're good with, what they're not good, what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with. And be supportive. A lot of times and parents sometimes are the hardest, is we tell people, like, you got to leave, you got to leave, you got to get out, you got to get out. And sometimes that sometimes makes it harder for them to leave in a sense, because they feel like maybe they're judged, maybe people aren't listening to them. A lot of times women, it takes them up to 10 times with an attempt to leave the relationship before they'll ever leave once. So it takes a lot sometimes for someone to leave. So if we get angry with them, maybe that they don't leave, or we're upset with them, or we have our own personal opinion in there too much, then sometimes that'll push people away. So it's really important to sit down and kind of listen and be that support person. And then be an upstander. If you see something, even if you're nervous about doing it yourself, if never hesitate to contact the police either. Sometimes people are worried to contact us because we have their name, but a lot of times people will call the police department and just say they want to remain anonymous, and they have some information they want to pass along. Maybe that something's happening to somebody, maybe someone's being hurt, that sort of thing, but they're just nervous to give their name. And that's okay too, because we can help there still as well. So we don't necessarily need your name always if you call. If you give us the information, then we can still try to do something with it.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And then kind of seek out these guidance and support counselors. But I can understand probably maybe somebody that's new to Canada, or maybe not as comfortable, or maybe culture-wise that it might be difficult to come. We as police officers can help with, getting guidance counselors involved, or family counselors, or, basically anything you need. If you're worried, there's women, as I said before, don't leave because these financial reasons, but some people will say, like, I can't even put food in my cupboards. We can fix all that. We can do all those things. There's resources out there for everything to get somebody out of this situation. And then over here, you can kind of see as I'm pointing, like, I'm not sure because this probably looks a little strange, but I'm pointing to it as I'm talking here. But I've got that love is respect again. I am a huge fan of that one. The Government of Canada site. There's another one there. It's called Futures Without Violence. I like that site as well. But there's one here, we'll go real quick, but this legal information one, that's a New Brunswick site, and it's probably one of my favorite sites to use. And I would highly recommend anybody for anything should just look it up. There's stuff on there about bullying. There's stuff on there about workplace harassment. There's stuff on there about how you can help seniors. There's safety planning. There's stuff about getting emergency orders. There's tons of information on that site. And if you were somebody new to Canada or somebody maybe unfamiliar with services, that is probably my favorite site that I use. Yeah, so that's the public legal education, but I'll just give you like a really quick example if you can see this. This is one of the ones that I print off, and Anika would probably see it when she reviews files that I use this one, or at least if she doesn't, she knows now, but I'm sure she does. This is just a safety plan. So somebody leaving an abusive relationship, this gives you all the information, things you consider, like everything from like maybe having a bag packed somewhere else and leaving it with a friend to, you know, how could I do it? Just every single thing you could think of when you're trying to leave an abusive relationship. But there's also great tips for kids on there in these situations. So if somebody's hurting my mom, like what's a good safety plan to use? But yes, this site, highly recommend.
Awesome. Thank you. Other great services.
Yeah, those are
Already-
just services that we talk about. And most of them are in St. John, but Hesty House is our women's shelter. I don't like using the word shelter on it because it's a place that you can go even for the daytime just to get counseling and support for women and children. And we have a child worker there as well. Second stage is actually like the next step after Hesty House. They've got a wonderful worker there by the name of Julia Fourgraves. First step is for first-time moms. St. John Domestic Violence Outreach, which I mentioned, KV, but Sexual Violence New Brunswick. I would also look that one up as well. If you look them up online, they have a service for victims that you can call throughout the day and speak with a counselor if you've been a victim of sexual violence. So good services.
Before I go to my questions, let me see what we have in the chat box and see if anyone has anything here. So one says, thank you for being here. Questions, please. I want to know what to do if someone is accused of something wrongfully in the workplace. And that's from Terry. What do you do when you're wrongfully accused in the workplace? What's the first point of action or first line of action?
Do you want to go with
Well,
that? I think in HR.
Yeah, I would say in your workplace, if there's an HR department or an HR manager, those are the advocates for the employees and the medium between the managers and the employees. That's usually the best place to go to help resolve your problem. And often they'll launch an administrative investigation to see what's happening there to try to resolve the issue. If you don't have an HR manager, typically, I'm assuming if you're being accused of something you didn't do, it's coming from the supervisor. So your other avenues would be to go to human rights or to hire a lawyer. So there are other ways. Now, if there's something happening in the workplace that's criminal in nature, you can definitely call the police. So if there's some kind of abuse happening or that type of thing. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, if you are accused because like you're working with children and you are accused, kids, they normally hug you, and maybe when one of the kids are playing with you, the parent comes in, not the parent says you're abusing the child. What do you do? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think I would talk to my supervisor about the situation and hopefully have a conversation with them and the parents so that you can come to some kind of understanding about what's going on there. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult situation to be in. And when you're dealing with children, it's such a sensitive matter. And a lot of us here being parents, we always jump to the defense of our children right away, even when we don't have all the information. So, having a conversation with everybody involved to try and resolve it, to me, would be the best way to try to handle that. What do you think, Kelley?
No, I think going to your supervisor, first of all, would probably be, HR is always, if you have, in a place where there's HR, that would be my first stop. But I think, if there's anything that you feel like you're being done wrong by, then supervisor, or, you have the potential for, depending on what the case is, maybe looking at human rights. Also, just again, I'm going to refer back to that public legal education website. There's information there as well on respectful work environments.
Mhm.
So there might be some information there that could be useful
Yeah.
to look up as well.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
So I hope that answers your question. Good. I know with kids it can be a bit complex. So yeah. So I have a question for Kelley. You mentioned elder abuse. For the benefit of most of the women here, we don't understand what's elder abuse. If actually I knew about that just not too long ago. So and I know the women that I work with. Could you just, explain what elder abuse is?
Well, elder abuse can be quite a few things. I mean, it can be anything from some of the stuff I described with, partner abuse, but it can also be some of the cases we would see like maybe not providing someone with the necessities of life, maybe someone's living with maybe an adult child, or maybe they're not providing them with their medication or food, or we see elder abuse. A lot of times it's financial abuse is some of the things that we would see, maybe someone abusing them and taking their money from them, or taking advantage of them in some of those types of situations. But really elder abuse can be, it kind of fits under a large umbrella. So it could be anything from someone being assaultive towards them, someone, threatening them, someone damaging some of their things, someone taking some of their belongings from them. Typically, a lot of what we would see is maybe someone that's not providing the necessities that they would need if they're maybe living with an adult child, or this financial aspect that we see quite a bit of. I don't know if Anika, you want to add any things that you would see as a person that reviews the files.
I would agree with Kelley. Financial is a big part of it. So when seniors are in a position where they have to live with their adult children, and they depend on them for care and depend on them to do their day-to-day banking or groceries and all of those types of things, there can be financial abuse there. Sometimes families and siblings have disputes about what the parents have and what they all feel that they're entitled to, and there's jealousy when one sibling gets to oversee the finances and deal with the parents' affairs. So it can become quite complex. And it's very sad to say, and hard to believe that people could do that to their own parents, especially when they're in such a fragile and vulnerable state as they get older and start to depend on their children. But it does happen, and we do see that. So that's something that we take very seriously.
Thank you very much. That makes sense. And so this question, okay, Ogachukwu has a hand up. Ogachukwu, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the session. It has been very insightful. So I just wanted to find out and ask, apart from because you talked about getting a lawyer and for the human rights regarding workplace harassment. So I know typically like workplace harassment is defined as a single or repeated incident of objectionable or unwelcome conduct, comments, bullying, or action intended to intimidate, offend, degrade, or humiliate a particular person or group. In this instance, because now getting a lawyer, of course, he will delve deeply to get the facts of the matter and see how much, the depth of the grievance. So in this case, if someone is going through this, how typically can the police help in this situation?
It's not typically something the police would deal with unless something criminal is happening. For example, if someone's being assaultive or threatening somebody, that's the only time, or there's some kind of workplace violence, that's the only time the police would become involved. And that's why we talk about HR, which is the human resource managers. A lot of them, organizations have one, and they deal with these types of issues. So it wouldn't be the mandate of the police typically to deal with a situation like that. And depending on the size of your organization, you may not have an HR manager. And that's why I said one of the other steps might be to go outside to an external agency like Human Rights or a lawyer to help advocate for you. Because if your problem is your supervisor and that's the highest person, you're going to have to look for somebody else to help you. But if you're ever in any immediate danger or anything criminal is happening, that's when the police can become involved.
Thank you very much. Coach, I hope that answers your question. I know we're out of time, but I just wanted to just a few ladies, I just crave your indulgence, just a few minutes, just one very important question. I get that all the time from the clients that we work with. So for newcomers to Canada who are interested in joining the police force, does it really matter whether they have permanent residency, citizenship? I mean, what status do you require for them to be a part of, and what else will be required, at least on a broad term?
So you would have to have permanent residency. So that's, yes. And then after that is you have to be at least 19 years old. You have to have a valid driver's license. You have to have a clean criminal record check, background check, and security checks. You have to do medical testing, vision testing, hearing testing, physical fitness testing, which is can be quite challenging for the police, because if you can imagine police officers like Kelley tonight, depending on what kind of call she might get, she may have to run after somebody, or she may have to have a struggle with somebody. So you have to prepare police cadets for those things. So we have the Atlantic Police Academy in PEI. It has an extensive application process, and once you're selected, you go there for training for several months, and then you do like a practicum we call the on-the-job training, where the police cadets get assigned to a police force, and they're assigned to a coach officer who teaches them how to apply their skills in the real world. So we often support that from the police academy, because that's where we get our recruits. So it's important for us to do that. So for women in policing, because there's not very many women in policing, we really encourage women to apply. Well, women bring such richness to this profession, different perspectives and ideas, and just representing women in the community is really, really important. If you want to know more about how to apply to a police academy, you can go to the Atlantic Police Academy website. It's in Summerside, PEI, and that gives you a very detailed list on the requirements.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
You're welcome.
And then I have one last question for Kelley. So you mentioned that while you were in high school, you had this co-op program that you had to attend to help you understand what it felt like, or what it feels like to be in the police. Do they still have those programs? And
yeah, I don't, I went through, I was in St. John at the time, and it was actually a great program, because we were actually out in the police cars with the officers and had gone to calls, but they've changed that just due to privacy issues and those sorts of things that have come about. So I don't think that they have the same type of programming. However, a lot of agencies would have like a community officer. I know St. John has. Anika, is it Tammy Spence that's still the officer in St. John?
Yes.
It is. Yeah. So we have a community officer named Tammy Spence in St. John, and you can actually go up. Anika's dog's probably barking there. You can actually go to Tammy if anyone's in St. John, or if you're out here or any police agency, but there's usually an officer that can be a contact for you. And maybe if, you wanted to get more involved with the police, there might be opportunities to volunteer at some of the events.
Okay.
I know that, Doa, I've probably got her to come out quite a few times with us, and Mohammed from a couple other events. So there's all sorts of opportunities. We're always doing something. So sometimes that's a good way for someone to get involved with us, and maybe have more conversations and see maybe if this is something that they want to do.
Mm-hmm. We've had occasion to invite Prude to our Friday barbecues a couple of years ago, before all the COVID things happened. Yeah, we had a wonderful time, and you set up a booth, and people got to know your organization and some of your members. It was really great to make those connections.
Yeah, the lady talked about that for a very long time. So yeah, I remember that.
Well, we want to thank you for having us, and we're so honored to be part of this, and we wish you all the best of luck in the rest of your learning journey with this cohort. And we look forward maybe to meeting you, some of you in person someday.
Yes, I sent invitations to you for the graduation. So if your time permits, it will be a good opportunity for them to meet you in person. Again, I know your schedule can be very, tight, but if you can, we'll be happy to have you in person. And Kelley, again, it's important to know that you're doing an amazing work with girls and women. It's very important for us to see that. And so it's good to have role models like you in the community. Thank you so much for what you do, because you give parents and women hope. That's, again, there's someone there who understands. It's different if you're talking to a male sometimes. When women have such challenges and we're talking to a fellow woman, it's a lot easier because as a woman, you understand the pain and challenges. So thank you so very much for all that you do. Thank you both of
for
you.
having me. And if there's something that comes up later, Christine, please feel free to put out, if someone asks or needs help, give them my email. They can call the station for me, but you can get me on my email lots of times.
Perfect. I have that now. I definitely will share that. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, ladies, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye.